What's happening, guys? Sam Adams here, and welcome to another episode of The Drop. In fact, this is the last episode of The Drop before E3 2017 coverage begins on my channel next week, so check out this trailer. Pretty cool, wasn't it? Looks all nice and retro wave. I enjoyed making it. But anyways, this week we are going to be talking about WipEout Omega Collection, a game called Hoard, a pretty cool game called Gonner coming to the Nintendo Switch. A lot of awesome stuff this week in the drop before E3. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. First off, we have WipEout the Omega Collection coming to the PlayStation 4. WipEout Omega Collection brings together all of the content from WipEout HD, WipEout HD Fury, and WipEout 2048 enhanced for the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 4 Pro. This is a quote from the devs: "We have been able to take advantage of the power and memory bandwidth of the PlayStation 4 to rework all of the textures in the game. Compared to the original games, textures are now clear when viewed up close. You can even read some of the small text on the ships for the first time." As well as a host of improved graphical effects, we have also added in HDR, which massively improves contrast to what was seen before. WipEout the Omega Collection will include 4K HDR support and feature higher resolution and improved graphical quality on the PlayStation 4 Pro. The additional power of PlayStation 4 Pro allows us to render an incredible amount of detail at 4 times the resolution of PlayStation 4, and the extra detail this affords us really adds to the gameplay experience by making it more immersive for the player. Now, as far as WipEout goes, I've been a pretty big fan for quite a while now. It's not one of those games where I actively wait for the next one to come out, but when a WipEout game does come, I do tend to embrace it. And the last one I really got into was, of course, WipEout 2048 on the PlayStation Vita, which I think was a launch game. If not, it came out very close to launch. And it was fantastic, however, greatly underappreciated because of the underappreciation of the PlayStation Vita itself. So to see that game getting a new coat of paint, so to speak, and being brought forward for the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 4 Pro, I'm really glad to see that happen. For those that have never played WipEout, this is a fantastic time to jump in. It's one of my favorite racing experiences because of the futuristic aesthetic that is being presented through the game and the futuristic controls. It just feels really unique and does stand out from your standard kind of Gran Turismo or Forza, so to speak. So like I said, if you've never given it a shot, this is a great time to try it, and it is coming out on the PlayStation 4 with enhanced PlayStation 4 Pro features this week. Next up, Hoard is coming out on the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and the PC. Hoard is a couch co-op shoot-'em-up where you and your team of friends use toys as weapons and game-changing superpowers to try to survive the attacks of evil robots and zombie Abe Lincolns. You and your pals are playing too many video games, Mom said, so it's time to go outside for a bit. Little does she know about the dangers spawning outside in Neighborville. Portals open up from another dimension. Evil robots, dragons, wizards, and zombie Abe Lincoln burst from these portals and start attacking you and your pals. Luckily, you have your trusty wooden sword and your pal save some bottle rockets from the 4th of July. How is that going to help? Use your imagination, kid. So there's a lot more writing with that same kind of feel to it. Not really my kind of thing, so let's skip to the last paragraph of the write-up. Since there are 80 plus weapons and superpowers and tons of enemies, no game is the same as the last, and you will always have a new strategy to try. Blast bottle rockets at evil dodgeballs, blow bubblegum shield to protect your team, catch the incoming robots on fire with your hairdryer flamethrower. That sounds pretty cool. Smash a wizard's face off with your trusty wooden sword. Can you defeat the bad guys before bedtime? So in my opinion, a little bit too much childishness here for me. Of course, you're talking to a guy that plays Rainbow Six Siege and Overwatch and things along these lines, but this just doesn't feel like something that a more mature gamer would really take part in. Of course, if you have children, perhaps this would be a great one to sit down because it is couch co-op, and I could see a big family gathering where this would really come in handy, but for me and my needs, it's not necessarily my kind of thing. So in other words, if you have a family or you have a younger child or younger children, this would probably be a pretty good fit for you. If you are in college and you like violence and shooting things, probably not. Of course, there are over 80 weapons and superpowers that means that there are 40 plus weapons and 40 plus superpowers. Let's not get this mixed up here. So there are pretty much 80 different combinations of things you can use, so there is a pretty large variety there. So the gameplay will probably stay pretty fresh, and if that sounds like your kind of thing and your scenario fits this style of game, then you might want to check out Hoard, which is coming out on the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and the PC this week. Next up, The Town of Light is coming to the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, and it's already available on the PC if you are a PC guy. 12th of March 1938, Renee, 16 years old, is ripped out of her world, locked up and deprived of everything. Her only fault was that she did not know what her place in the world was, a danger to herself and others, and a cause of public scandal, wrote the police headquarters. The only horror you will find in this game is the truth, a blow to the solar plexus, much more intense than any supernatural presence. The Town of Light is a psychological adventure told in the first person. The story is set in Italy in the first half of the 20th century, in a place which really existed and has been meticulously reconstructed. Exploring and interacting with the environment, you will relive the history of the main character through her confused viewpoint, and on the basis of your choices, the story will develop in different ways. So I'm getting a pretty good Telltale vibe from this, not necessarily through the gameplay itself, but more so how the game and the story unfolds over time, because the choices you make genuinely do impact the outcome of the story. What I like about this one, however, is that it has been meticulously recreated, meaning that it is historically accurate, or at least the town is, so that way you have a good little background of history that does sugarcoat that gameplay experience in the game overall. Now, for me and my gameplay and game style preference, The Town of Light doesn't really do anything for me because I'm not a big fan of narrative-driven games, so to speak. I even tried playing the Banner Saga recently, couldn't really get into that, even though the gameplay and the art within it is stellar. However, The Town of Light does seem to be pretty interesting. I'm liking the historical context of the game itself, so if it sounds like something you might be interested in, you can check out more gameplay on YouTube, which again, it's been out on PC for I believe almost a year now, and then if you wanted to give it a shot on your PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One, those versions are coming out this week. Next up, Gonner is coming to the Switch. Gonner is a tough-as-hell score-based procedurally generated platformer with roguelike elements. Every part of that sentence scratches every itch that I have. Gonner is also a story about friendship between Ick, Death, and a space whale named Sally. Let's just focus on the first sentence. You will die a lot. This is by design, but it's not meant to feel unfair. You'll eventually get the hang of Gonner, so don't lose your head, but even if you do, it's okay because we have a lot of replacement heads you can use. I'm not too sure about the ride up there, but Gonner as a game itself seems to be really interesting and a fantastic fit on the Switch. You guys know I love roguelike elements, I love procedurally generated stuff, I love all of the things that Gonner does seem to be, and it's at a pretty good price point. It's not necessarily a discount game, but you can pick it up for a pretty good price, especially considering it is on the Nintendo Switch. For someone like myself that is having trouble finding Switch games that really do keep my attention for a long period of time, this one looks like it could show some promise because of its replayability. That is a big key point for me whenever I'm making a gameplay purchase, because I want to be able to get a lot of hours out of a game that I'm putting some money into. So with that being taken into consideration, Gonner is looking like a pretty fantastic fit for my Nintendo Switch catalog, and if it feels like a good fit for you, it is coming out this week. Next up, we have DiRT 4 coming to the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and the PC. DiRT 4 is all about embracing fear. It's about the thrill, exhilaration, and adrenaline that is absolutely vital to off-road racing. It's about loving the feeling of pushing flat out next to a sheer cliff drop. What kind of write-up is this? It's about loving the feeling of pushing flat out next to a sheer cliff drop, going for the gap that's too small, and seeing how much air you can get. Be fearless. Okay? DiRT 4, it's a pretty fantastic off-road racing simulator. I played some DiRT 3. It's incredibly realistic if you're into that kind of thing. If you have a simulator, I'm sure this is going to be a pretty fantastic fit for your racing rig. But for a novice like me, it's not NASCAR. It's not the other Gran Turismo style racing. It's just off-road rally cars, I believe is what they're called. I don't know, I don't really do races, but it's a fantastic game. DiRT is a notoriously good franchise, so if you're into that kind of thing, you can check it out this week. Last but not least, we have Rogue Stormers coming to the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. What's Rogue Stormers? Think a modernized Contra / Metal Slug mashup with procedurally generated levels. You'll never play it the same way twice. Rampage your way through 5 excruciatingly sick biomes modeled in blistering 3D. these description words. Trick out your equipment with randomized drops, trigger environmental chain reactions to fry your enemies alive, and set a gloop ablaze, detonate explosive, launch enemies into hazards, and more. So with this one, I'm a huge fan of Metal Slug, I always have been, and to have a newer version of that style game brought to the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One with a kind of new life breathed into it, not to mention 2 sick biomes with blistering 3D, that's sounding pretty good to me. So if you are interested in that, if you are a fan of Contra and Metal Slug, that game is coming out, Rogue Stormers, on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One this week. So there you guys have it. That wraps it up for this week's episode of The Drop. If you did enjoy this episode, drop me a like down below and subscribe to the channel like my new sign says right here for more content if you are interested in that. And also there's a huge playlist of every other episode of The Drop that has come out for the better part of the last 3 years. So that's a pretty big thing. You can check that out if you are interested, but as for right now, I'm going to go prep for some more E3 stuff. I will talk to you soon. Peace.